you're going to have a very, very upset and angry group of people at the convention. Now, I hope that doesn't happen, because if I win, people are going to be very happy. I hope it doesn't involve violence, and I don't think it will. But I will say this: it's a rigged system. It's a crooked system. It's 100% crooked.
Donald Trump on the stump in Staten Island. You just heard him there saying the RNC's nomination process is crooked. This as the convention's Rules Committee for the Republican National Committee is scheduled to meet this week in Florida, and tensions are running high. Rules Chairman Bruce Ashe of Arizona supports a debate on changing the rules, while top RNC lawyer John Ryder is urging the Rules Committee not to change the rules for fear that it'll look as if the RNC favors a specific candidate. In his words, he is instructing RNC members that would be dangerous. Let's pick up on the discussion as our panel returns. From Northern Virginia, presidential historian Craig Shirley, from New York City, former New York Lieutenant Governor Betsy McCaughey, and via Skype from St. Petersburg, pollster Matt Towery. So we just had a very passionate discussion here. Matt, with the Rules Committee meeting in Florida, what do you expect to transpire?
I'm no expert on what they're going to do at this time. I've been taking my lead from Randy Evans, who's a member of the Rules Committee, who I know and who's been very outspoken about the process. I don't expect they'll change the rule, don't get that from Randy, but I'm just saying, I don't think they'll change it. One thing that we have to keep in mind, though, to go back and put things in perspective is when we say, quote, rigged, in reality, we're talking about individual states. They all have their own conventions and different rules and different ways they do things. And that's really where this problem is developing for Donald Trump. And yes, I can understand why he feels like it's rigged. When he wins Georgia, a plurality of the vote by a large number, and then he doesn't have any delegates that will be with him on the second round, then you can certainly say you feel like it's rigged. As far as the RNC, they're being very careful because they're taking all the heat for all of these individual state parties and their behavior, along with what might happen in Cleveland.
Craig, some members to the RNC say that any changes of the rules, even a change in punctuation, would be, quote, perceived by some as a conspiracy to cheat somebody, end quote. Do you agree?
I think that anything right now they do to any substantial change is going to play right into Donald Trump's hands, and that he's going to charge a conspiracy by the insiders. The only thing I can think where, especially if they eliminate the 8-state majority rule to allow Kasich or somebody else to compete for the nomination, they're probably wise to leave things as they are, so at least Trump doesn't end up with a new enemy or a new storyline. This is not unlike 1976. Is that there were Trojan horse delegates in the North Carolina, Kentucky, and Vermont delegations who were actually for Ronald Reagan, but they were mandated to vote for Gerald Ford on the first ballot. And had it gone to a second balloting in Kansas City in 1976, Reagan may well have won the nomination. His team didn't always do a good job in the states, but in some states they did a very good job. And so I guess that's the same thing you say about Trump, is that in some states he's doing a very good job, in other states he's doing a lousy job.
Well, this whole argument continues, and Betsy, RNC Chair Reince Priebus appeared on CNN's State of the Union yesterday, speaking out against Mr. Trump's comments that the RNC is running a conspiracy against the Trump campaign. Let's listen to the chairman, and then Betsy, I'll get your reaction.
It's up to the delegates. I mean, by majority, the delegates decide. They decide everything. So it's not a matter of party insiders. It's a matter of 2,400 plus grassroots activists, and whatever they want to do, they can do. And that's where the power lies.
Do you agree with that, Betsy?
Totally untrue, because those 2,400 delegates are not grassroots activists. They are the political insiders in each state. That's how they got to the convention to begin with.
It seems to me, as I'm listening to this discussion, There's one thing that I don't believe Republicans want to see happen, and that is the notion of, for lack of a better term, federalizing or standardizing rules from state to state. Certainly, states should have the right to have different processes, but boy, as this is unfolding, Craig, it is really jacking up the frustration level. 30 seconds to you, sir.
Well, it would just be, to your point, I agree with you. It would be contrary to the Republican principles of federalism to let the states decide their best process for picking their delegates. Some states choose conventions that are binding. Some states choose conventions that are non-binding. Some states choose caucuses that are binding. Other states do not. But it is consistent with conservative philosophy to let the states decide their own process for picking their delegates.
And
they better clean up their act.
Well, let me go to Matt Towery, a veteran of what has gone on in Georgia in days past. What do you expect the reaction is going to be in the Peach State to what happened over the weekend? 30 seconds, Matt.
To Craig's point and to Betsy's point, you have people who are activists who are involved. They're not upset about this at all. They think they're doing a great job. The voters can't understand it. The hundreds of thousands, 500,000 plus votes. You're talking about a lot of votes for a Republican primary and a candidate in Georgia from that state. And so the Trump supporters in those areas can't figure it out. They're very frustrated. And I think that frustration will expand around the country as we get closer to the convention if he ends up leading by millions of votes.
All right, we will see what happens there. For now, we thank all three of you for what you had to say. You heard a very interesting discussion, and we'd like to get your take. Here's where you can send me your comments. Send them to newsmaxtv.com/comments, or if you like to use Twitter, our handle is @Newsmax Prime. When we come back, veteran naval officer and physician Zuhdi Jasser on the Citadel and rules about a hijab. Stay